Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Victor and I enjoy illustrating scriptures from the Bible and bringing them to life. I create these illustrations to hopefully encourage people, but most importantly to share the good news of Jesus Christ. Today I want to share with you a piece I call Anchor, which is inspired by Hebrews chapter 6 verses 19 through 20, which says, "We have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. It enters the inner sanctuary behind the curtain where our forerunner, Jesus, has entered on our behalf." A reminder that relying on Jesus and placing our hope and trust in Him is like an anchor. It's secure. It's not a matter of chance. But when you think of hope, what comes to mind? I believe we use hope as an expectation or desire for something good to happen, but at the same time not really expecting it to happen. We use the term to be optimistic, but are we really? Unfortunately, we are training ourselves to believe that having hope is more of a game of chance, where maybe it will happen or it might not. And because of that mindset, this verse loses its meaning for many Christians because they're making parallels between the hope they practice and the hope that's mentioned in the Bible. This verse just becomes another positive saying, and the power and weight that this verse is meant to have becomes as useless as you crossing your fingers or knocking on wood. And that's not the worst part about it. We have placed our trust and hope in things other than God. There are Christians out there who have more trust in their bank accounts than in God. There are Christians who are trusting in that weekly lottery ticket more than God. Trust more in their job position, their status, their followers more than God. Have more hope in their vices, the tarot card reader, the medium, the psychic that they saw in that downtown area. The rock crystals that they wear around their necklace more than God. Hope becomes just a game of chance for them because that's what they're practicing in life, and it becomes the norm. And guess what? Having hope in these worldly things is exactly that. There is no certainty. And what does that say about our faith in God then? Hope and faith are intertwined, and if you're treating hope like a game of chance, then your faith likewise is as wavering as the wind. Notice how in Hebrews 6:19 it parallels hope to an anchor. The function of an anchor is to hold your vessel, your boat in place, even when facing storms. When a sailor does this time after time, they know they're not playing a game of chance with it. They don't have a feeling of uncertainty when they use it. There's a level of confidence and security. Even though they can't see it when they plunge it into the depths of the sea, they have faith in it. Now, imagine that same sailor using a brick to do the same job. Will it work? Sure, on a calm, windless day in a small pond in a canoe. And as those conditions remain the same, the brick will do the job. But we know very well life isn't like that at all. It will bring you challenges and storms, and life can feel more like a raging sea. Can you imagine how well that brick will do in the face of a little bit of wind or a storm? Placing your trust in the world is exactly like that brick. In Mark chapter 4, verses 35 through 41, we see Jesus and his disciples crossing the Sea of Galilee. On their journey, they encounter a storm. The storm made the seas violent, and their boat was taken on water, and the disciples were afraid, and they feared for their lives, so they ran to Jesus for help. Jesus was asleep at the time, but when he was awakened, he commanded the wind and the waves to be still, and it obeyed. Notice that the disciples didn't go elsewhere for help. Nowhere in the scriptures do you read them holding on to a lucky rabbit's foot or a rock crystals. No, they went to Jesus. However, there was one thing the disciples lacked, and Jesus called them out on. After Jesus calmed the storm, he asked the disciples in verse 40, "Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith?" Remember, these are the same disciples who witnessed with their own eyes Jesus cleansing lepers, removing demonic spirits, healing all sorts of sicknesses that had no cures, essentially doing the impossible. You would think that they would have more faith in Jesus and what he could do. Some Christians are quick to judge the disciples and say, well, if I walk with Jesus like the disciples did, man, I would have so much faith. Yet, these are the same people who have been Christians all their lives, walking with God supposedly, some for several decades, and have no faith to show for it. How can you place your hope in Christ when you lack faith in him? And on top of that, you place your hope elsewhere. I know this isn't the most uplifting message, and the goal is not to make you feel guilty, not at all, but to guide you towards God's real hope. because I'm coming to you from a place of experience, because I myself have failed in this aspect. I have once placed my hope and faith in things other than God, and I've seen the results. And I'll share one of many examples that I have. When I was growing up, financially, things were tough for me and my mom. We had medical bills that put us in a financial hole, and the car that we had at the time was a constant expense. It just kept breaking down. We moved a lot trying to find an affordable place to rent, even if that meant that my mom and I had to sleep in a single room of someone else's house. My mom worked multiple jobs to pay the bills, but keeping up with the bills was a challenge, to say the least. We were barely staying afloat, and we were getting tired of just scraping by. I remember we decided to play the state lottery. My mom and I bought 2 tickets on a Saturday morning, and the idea of winning a couple $1,000,000 was more than a dream. It was life-changing. And I just remember thinking of all the possibilities, getting a new car that worked, and maybe buying a house and having some extras and not having to worry so much about that weekly paycheck. Money seemed like the answer to all of our problems. And I remember us praying over those 2 lottery tickets and actually being a little bit excited about the prospect of winning. When it came time for the lottery numbers to be announced, we watched the TV closely with our tickets at hand. As each number was being called, I scanned my ticket carefully over and over, hoping for a match. As the announcer finished calling all the numbers, I recall looking at my ticket and my mom looking at hers. And as we looked up at each other, disappointment filled our eyes, knowing that the debt, the junky car, the low-paying jobs will continue to be our reality. What we didn't understand at the time was that we thought we were placing our trust in God by asking Him to bless us with this lottery. But what we were really doing was placing our hope and faith in money, because money was going to get us out of debt. Money was going to get us a new car, because money was going to make our lives better, not God. Our focus was on what money could do and not on what God could do. And what else were we doing wrong? We were gambling. Gambling is a slippery slope straight to sinning. It's something that can make you greedier, more obsessed with money, and make you addicted to it. In Proverbs 13:11, it says, "Wealth gained by dishonesty will be diminished, but he who gathers by labor will increase." Some may think playing the lottery is innocent. However, to win the lottery, I have to win it at the expense of thousands of people who were fooled by the lottery system with the false hopes of winning. I mean, sure, there's a winner, but there's a lot more losers. Yet, I wanted God to bless me that way at the expense of all those people who lost. Can you already see how greed was creeping into my life? Thankfully, God is patient and He's merciful, and over time we learned our lesson. This was not an honest way to get money. And as we began to finally put our full trust and hope in God, we saw Him operate in our lives in ways you couldn't imagine. God placed people in our lives who blessed us. We saw God's favor, doors of opportunity open. It wasn't luck. From sleeping on the floor of someone's house to eventually being able to rent our own place to one day owning our own house, God provided. He was the hope we needed all along. And He also taught us lessons along the way, which prepared us for the blessings that were coming. For example, to be patient, to wait on God. We didn't get all those things at once. It took years. But God always came through at the perfect time. We never lacked. We sometimes are so anxious for things, and instead of waiting and placing our hope and trust in God, we allow our fear, worry, anxiety, and negative influences of the outside world to lead us to look elsewhere in desperation, only to fall for its deception of hope. I've seen so many people in desperation place their trust in the world, hoping for quick answers, and I know the feeling. My mom and I wanted some financial relief, and we thought the lottery was a quick solution. But imagine if we won. Would it have fixed all of our problems? Maybe in the beginning. But how many stories have you heard of people winning the lottery and losing it all? Some end up living a worse life afterwards. I don't know if that would have been us, but God knows. And He will protect us by sometimes not giving us what we want. He's not going to give you something that will harm you. But remember, He will always provide you with what you need. And there's a huge difference between wants and needs. And as I said earlier, there might be a lesson we need to learn before those blessings come. So just because you may not be seeing your prayers answered, it doesn't mean God isn't listening or doing something about it or preparing you for it. Don't let fear, worry, and anxiety make you place your hope somewhere else. Don't allow your impatience to make you lose your faith and trust in God and the work that He's doing in your life. Don't allow impatience to rob you of what's to come. If you keep placing your hope in the things in the world and jumping from one worldly thing to another, you will end up disappointed. Instead of having hope, you end up having doubt. Instead of peace, strife. It's like how James 1:6 describes. The one with doubt is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. But placing your complete trust and hope in God is like an anchor. It is secure, dependable, and steadfast. It will give you peace and strength amid the chaos.